All right, the first game of round 7 is the Western Bulldogs and the Sydney Swans. One team is absolutely humming and the other one's premiership aspirations are pretty much in tatters after last week, Hoyney.
Yeah, it is. I feel like this is a game for Sydney where you just get in, get the 4 points and get out, no matter how it actually looks. I think, Bevo is renowned for that emotional response type of coach, so you feel like that they will be charged, right up as high as they could be. No Hoyney, no Goulden, so just get in, get it done, I think, if you're the Swans.
The last few weeks has been smart leading players who have got the Bulldogs on, I guess, Buku Karma. So Gunston the week before, Jeremy Cameron kicked 10 last week. And I think Joel Armadi is their best leading player. You think about where he gets the footy, it is straight up the middle, 30 metres out, directly in front. He doesn't kick from the angle too much, so I'm happy to back in Joel Armadi to do this one. And the other one is Brodie Grundy in the ruck.
Yeah, absolutely. In the ruck against a young opponent. Yeah. They might have to throw someone else in there from time to time as well. I'm going to take on the Lizard. I took a few very good players on last week. And it's a sweat, let me tell you. If you're not up for the sweat, don't get involved. I'm going to take on Nick Blakey. Just the number, 24.5. It's probably the highest line you've ever seen with him. He's gone under that in most of his games at Marvel Stadium. So I'm just going to take him on.
The inaccurate Dogs?
I'll be nervous for most of the game, no doubt. But I think at the end he'll be on 22 or 23 and he'll be all sweet.
I like it.
I'd expect an emotional probably start to the game from the Bulldogs. They'll be fired up. Their backs are against the wall. But with the way that Sydney are playing, I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a bit of a blowout in the second half.
Yeah. Even without Hoyney and Goulden?
Yeah, Hoyney and Goulden out. Like, I would have been with you if Hoyney was playing, but Hoyney and Goulden out. Yeah.
Their defence worries me, the Bulldogs. I thought at the start of the year they'd turn things around there, but yeah. A couple of weeks is a long time in football. Enjoy the game. Good luck if you support either of those two teams. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of In the Back Pocket ahead of round 7 in the AFL. Matt Nevett is my name, two-time All-Australian Nathan Brown alongside me, as is champion darters Daniel Hoyne and the man who kicked 297 AFL goals, Josh Jenkins. Hello JJ. Did you think a lot about 300 towards the end there?
Not really. Chris Scott wasn't too fond of putting me in the 22. I didn't want to be sub from time to time, but I couldn't quite get there. So all's well that ends well.
But a guy called Brian Royal played for the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Finished on 199 games, 299 goals.
Wow. There you go. So there's always someone worse off. Well, he's probably better off, but you know what I mean. Last week, the pain in our best bets. The first time, unfortunately, we've had duck eggs.
Yeah, it's a tough week. It was. James Sicily is cruising at 15 disposals, 10 minutes into the third quarter. Then Sam Mitchell decided to put him to forward where he didn't go near it for a long time.
I've said this forever. It is so much easier to play back than it is forward. Yep. And James
As Cam Zurhaar found out last week.
Josh really happy about that move, Browny.
Yeah.
18 at three-quarter time for Josh Rochelle. I threw the TV remote at the television, but we don't just give out one bet on the show each and every week. We do a little bit more than that, obviously. So we thought we'd give the viewers a bit of a look at how we actually did fare across the weekend.
Well, they don't tag the Gold Coast Suns, so that leads me to Zach Merritt. 30 plus to go big, $2.12. I'm happy to back Merritt in against a side that doesn't tag.
As Merritt arches the back, breaks the tackle and shows why he's one of the Bombers' best.
Nick Watson, you spoke about him. I think this is a great opportunity. He's better than 2 goals a game this year.
Jones on Watson, he'll stroll in and kick number 5, Nick Watson.
He just looks ready to explode. 3+ goals for Paul Curtis against an inferior opposition.
For the curtain call, a career high 6.
Short's been over this line, or 22 or above, 4 or 5 this year, so I'm keen to back Jaden Short.
I wouldn't back Melbourne head-to-head, but I do think there's a bet here in their total points over 82.5.
He's a left footer, he can go all the way, inside 50, 45 and closing, he's kicked a goal, and they're up by 10.
I'm going to take Cozzy on, which is an interesting thing to do. His line's just too big. They'll use him forward as much as possible. He's not going to as many centre bounces as we'd think. More than happy to take him.
Braver than me, JJ. Well, there you go, guys. So it was actually a pretty fruitful weekend.
It was.
For the team.
It was just the best bet didn't get up. So
well, yours did, but you just pivoted off it.
Well, I took Zach Merritt originally, and then I pivoted to James Sicily, which
you never change.
No.
You don't change, and I believe you might have changed this.
No, I'm thinking about it. I don't know whether to zig or zag. I still haven't made up my mind, so give me 2 minutes. JJ, what's your best this weekend?
So Brownie's best last week was Zach Merritt. So I am going to go with. I saw he went back in the last quarter, so he's gone forward to half forward. back in the last quarter, had 13, had 4 kick-ins. Fingers crossed that remains. Now, even if he plays
two
mid,
of them, he chipped it and got it back.
and that's what we love. Even if he plays mid, no issue. So against Collingwood, he's got a fabulous record. Really unlikely they'll tag him. So I'm happy to be with Zach Merritt, who there's been a lot of chatter around how's he actually going. Considering his off-season, once again, I think his form stacks up. So I'm more than happy to be with Zach Merritt this week.
Yeah, he and the Bombers are going well. Browny?
This is the first time I've ventured into the multi-territory for best, and it adds complexity to it. But I've got Carl Amon, who's one of my favourites at 20+, and Jordan Clark at 23+. Gets to $1.91. So I'm just finding a lot of value in the single markets at the moment. So you look at Nick Dacos playing this weekend. For 30+, he's $1.30. Like, there is zero value there. Like, Bailey Smith is even less than that. They're getting big numbers, but you've got to go big on those players. And, you've got to go 35, 36 or so. I've gone smaller. Hopefully it's safety, but Carl and Jordan Clark.
Yeah, it's a good point. It gets harder with the star players as their form becomes a little bit more exposed across the season.
No issues on any tags with those two, Hoyne, from your perspective?
No, I don't think so. No. Collingwood don't tag, and as you alluded to, JJ rightly so, Zach Merritt's
I'd be unlucky if they tagged Carl Amon, wouldn't I?
Very.
Yes, you would be, but you were very unlucky with Sicily last week. Matty, are you zigging or zagging? What's going on?
I've been on the fence with around 3 bets. This is the one I'm going with as the best this weekend. I think Adelaide can defend a 20.5 head start against the Lions. Look, I know the game is at the Gabba. We've mentioned this previously. It's not exactly a fortress for Brisbane. It's not like they're unbeatable up there. Adelaide have got a pretty good record against the Lions in recent years as well. Yep. They're going to miss a couple of key players through injury from the Demons game last week. And I think Adelaide they're going a little bit better than maybe what people are giving them credit for. They're also one of the best travelling teams in the competition. They're very good on the road. So, in a game where I could see it as a 50-50, I think a 20.5 head start's a great line to get.
Agreed. Last 4 they've covered that. There was a draw in there. Adelaide won one of those matches as well. So Dawson's a big inclusion if he does play. He's probably worth, a goal maybe. So don't dislike that at all.
Yeah, big game. Friday night football, Anzac Eve. Love what these two sides have done in terms of being able to build this over the last few years.
In terms of big game, it's not that big though, is it? Like it's for the theatre. In terms of the match-up, the head-to-head, it's not that big because we feel like the Demons are going to win comfortably, and it's a tough game to punt on as well. I gave this a C. So look, there's no Tigers to back. You look at Taranto and players like that more often than not, but there's nothing to back in this team. So low possession team are Melbourne through the midfield as well. So there's no one getting high disposals. I guess the only option is the goal scorers for Melbourne. At the Melbourne end, you've got Myercheck, you've got Van Rooyen, you've got Bailey Fridge. So if you are going to have a bet in this game, it's probably the total points over for Melbourne or the goal scorers.
Yeah.
And this is why Richmond concede goals. So they 19 against the Suns, 38 scoring shots. There's only 13 for Fremantle, but that is big. 20 against the Giants, 20 against North Melbourne. So if that trend continues and Melbourne have been scoring over 100 regularly, I'm happy to back that in.
And that's why I'm going to try and land in the sweet spot. So the D's averaging 108 at the MCG. Richmond, of course, giving up those goals and those big scores. My risk is probably, believe it or not, Melbourne going over 120. That's my biggest risk or biggest concern, but I'm happy to play in that space for the D's.
Yeah, it feels like the right sort of range for them scoring-wise. I'm just going to take the total game points under, though. I feel like the traders have got this nice and high now. They've seen what Melbourne have been able to do from a scoring point of view, but you're still banking on Richmond scoring here. And it's also Demons off a 5-day break. It's a blockbuster game at night. It's a little bit of a different scenario for some of these young players. I wonder if some get a little bit starstruck. Just wouldn't shock me if they don't score as heavily this weekend, the Ds. Like I said, you're also relying on Richmond hitting the board too. So,
so you two are against each other then?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. No, you can still get 110 in the Tigers.
I do like the angle. When you take the total points over, you've got to rely on the other team. Even if it's going to be a blowout, you're relying on Richmond to contribute 60 or 70 or 80 points. That's why I'm more keen on the Ds. Bailey Fritsch, yes, he started on the wing. It's less about where he starts, more about where he plays. Got a really good record, particularly in games where the opposition is a little soft and lowly and you've got an opportunity to hit the scoreboard. 7 goals at the MCG this year. He might get Nathan Broad, but Broad's a defender who likes to press up the ground. I reckon he'll get out the back a couple of times and hit the scoreboard.
I love smart players who can get out the back, and I won't call it cheating. I'd call it smart staying put. And I think Bailey Fritsch is as good as that as anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm backing Bailey Fritsch with you. The other one, I think, is Brodie Myercheck. So I think they'll put some time into Van Rooyen, and Van Rooyen's been a bit hit and miss. Kicked 6 in the first game, as we know, and he was okay last week. Langford kicked 3, but Brodie Myercheck, for me, is the lead-up player. And I think Fritsch and Brodie Myercheck can get a hold of the Tigers defenders.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the combination of what Cade Chandler, Harry Sharp and Bailey Fritsch are actually doing as a threesome at the moment. They are benefiting significantly off this aggressive, quick ball movement game. And the three of them have been super consistent all season. And I think for Bailey Fritsch, one of his assets is his actual ball use, in general play. So seeing him get up the ground and being able to slice and dice his way through. Cade Chandler has been super consistent all season as well. So that's where, for me in this game, that is a significant threat for Richmond. They haven't really got those small, or medium-sized defenders that can follow these guys around the ground, like Brisbane actually struggles to do on the weekend. So just the three of them, just to keep an eye on. Yeah,
great to see Cade Chandler really step into that role. I guess Alex Neil-Bullen left a couple of years ago. The D's, do we expect them to finish in that wild card slot? They're sort of framing themselves like that sort of team at the moment.
Potentially, but I think what they're doing defensively at the moment, that would be the most significant concern. Offensively, great. Defensively, a lot of room for improvement.
So as we pointed out, we're backing Myercheck and Bailey Fritsch for 3+ goals, but my same multi for this game, I just bring it back a little bit. So Fritsch, I'm asking for 2, Brodie Myercheck for 2, and then the man of steel playing some nice football. All I want is 22+ for him.
Good luck. And it's a blockbuster if you follow either of these two teams, so enjoy the football. This is In the Back Pocket. Matt Nevett is my name. Nathan Brown, Daniel Hoyne and Josh Jenkins are alongside of me. And team, there's been a bit of movement in the Brownlow market. So, Browny, let's rip into the Brownlow tracker.
Yeah, the tracker, it's getting really tight at the moment. So I've got Nick Dacos at the top. I gave him 3 votes. You have 39 touches and you're the best player on the ground, or the best player in the universe in the last quarter. Zach Butters, I gave him 2. I thought it was a cracking game. Nick Watson, for me, got the 3 votes in that game. Bontempelli has voted the last 2 weeks. Bailey Smith is racking up the 2s at the moment. Christian Petrarca comes back in, 25 and 3. I gave Rao the 3. Harry Sheasel, just consistent. He had 39 touches. That couldn't get in the 3 in that game. I gave it to the bench press kicker who kicked 5. I think he kicked all the way down to Justin McInerney, who's having a sneaky season. Isaac Hoyne got touches, but I thought there was better players, and obviously he's out at the moment as well. So it's hotting up. Zach Butters, the big question is, can they win enough games for him to win the Brownlow Medal?
And how often does he get sat on? That's the other query.
Yeah, well, and he's going to get sat on this weekend against O'Shea Mullen, but the Nick Dacos one there, 14 votes out of a possible 15 votes. He's played 5 games, 14 votes. It's extraordinary what he's doing.
Yeah. That's the thing. To knock off Nick, you're going to have to poll, close to a record amount of votes. That's the trend over the last few years.
It's fair to say he could have won 2 already himself.
Yeah. So
and the thing for Nick, he hasn't got anyone around him that's going to be taking votes off him.
No.
So it's just Nick or bust.
I wonder, though, whether we get to a point with Collingwood, whether they win enough games for him to consistently, it's hard to get, you don't often get the 3s in losses. So if we're trying to chip around and try and find a couple of big prices, 2 that jumped off the page for me, John Newcombe, who fits that inside mid, contested possession player, and then Max Holmes, now 17 and 18 votes respectively last year. Newcombe PB up to 26 disposals per game this year. PB is also in handball receives, which is something that hopefully jumps off the page, centre bounce clearances and total clearances. And Holmes is up to 30 a game this year. They're big numbers, 600 metres gained. So if you're trying to just go around Nick and hope that maybe he either misses some games or Collingwood lose too many games, maybe there's a couple in teams that are going to win a lot of games of footy.
All right, well, it's not exactly the most marquee of slots, this one, but I tell you what, it's a ripping game between Hawthorn and the Gold Coast Suns, who they kind of need a big scalp here, the Suns, and they get an opportunity this week against the Hawks, JJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more valid. So Gold Coast never won in Tasmania, but I think that's less relevant than Moore and Sicily being out. 2 of their 5 most important players, I would think, off the top of my head. So I'm putting it on Gold Coast. It's been 3 weeks in a row. Yes, they won last week, but before that, poor. Go down there in an environment where you've never won and win the game of footy. I'll be backing Gold Coast at $2.30.
And if Noah Anderson gets up and plays this game, they've pretty much almost got a full squad to pick from.
For the first time.
Gold Coast.
Yep.
Yeah, so like and I'll keep saying this about with the Suns, they have a big 6 weeks coming up because their draw post-bye is clearly the hardest draw in the competition. So they're going to have to start to bank wins and get significantly ahead of the ledger before that period of their season comes in.
Will Powell's a good matchup for Watson. We saw him do some damage there. Will Powell might be one of the better matchups for him in the game. So I think they're well placed here, Gold Coast, to really give this a shake.
I like Jack Gunston fresh too. So the week off, it's a starting point is 3 goals for Jack Gunston at the moment. So if you like that, you'd probably take him for 4. The other one I don't mind is Jed Walter. I think he gets the third tall with Sicily being out. I think Reid and King get the 2 best, which is Barras and Battle. So I do like the big fella in this one.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a concern for me at the moment with what's happening with Gold Coast behind the footy. I think that there is still a little bit unsure with that makeup and what to actually, do with some personnel behind there. Charlie Ballard has come back into the team this year. Mac Andrew is moving around a little bit at the moment. Will Powell, as you just alluded to, JJ, mid forward, mid back. Where's he going to play?
Mac Andrew is everywhere. Isn't he?
So as a result, last year they were one of the best D50 teams in the competition. This year they're mid-table, and they are coming up against the best forward 50 in the competition against Hawthorn. So Jack Gunston coming back into that team, that is going to be a significant challenge there for Gold Coast. Can they hold up like they haven't been able to hold up so far this year?
Got a bit of work to do on his goal kicking, Jed Walter. He doesn't fill you with the most confidence line.
There's not many out there that do. Like if there's players lining up, I'm pretty comfortable with Jack Gunston. There's a few others.
Benny King.
Liam Ryan, when he has a shot as
Big
well.
Big scratch and Neil's pretty accurate.
Some of them you're like, oh, look away now.
Matty Rao, do you think Connor Nash will go to him this weekend?
I think so. Hawthorn probably 6 or 7 times out of 10 back their system in. Occasionally they'll go to a player. Nash was busy on Bontempelli and did the job. I just think Rao's the tone setter that you'd like to take out of the game, particularly if Noah Anderson is not there. Petrarca wants to be, getting the first ball on the outside. Bailey Humphrey the same. So I'd like to see them take Rao out from that perspective. I agree with you though. The game in Adelaide, Gold Coast really shocked me how disorganised they were behind the ball, but also ahead of the ball, leaving guys like Riley Bice in space. So bit of a surprise. It really made me sit back and think maybe they're not quite as good as we think they are.
I like backing half-back flankers, and Carl Amon, a nicer guy he is. I like to back him even though he's a nice guy as well. But he had 4 of his last 5 games against Gold Coast, so he loves playing against them. Gold Coast will push their half-forwards up. They play a lot of on-ballers and 26-plus disposals. His line is 22.5, so I'm comfortably going over that. He takes the kick-outs. He had 4 last week. So backing Carl.
And I'll tell you what he won't get. He won't get any attention from Gold Coast.
Not at all.
I don't think John Newcombe will get too much attention. It's not really the way that Gold Coast go about it. So I think 26 plus disposals for a guy who he doesn't post huge numbers and he can be a little bit inconsistent between sort of the low 20s and the high 20s. But this game sets up well for him. And you mentioned him in the Brownlow tracker, JJ. So I think he's going to be a big part of their attempt at winning that game this weekend. The biggest game of the weekend, it is each and every year on this weekend, is the Anzac Day clash between the Bombers and the Pies. And their last 10 quarters of football, Essendon, they've turned something around, Hoyney.
Yeah, they have. I would have thought, 2 weeks ago, we're probably sitting here looking at this game going, this is probably going to be a bit of a flat Anzac Day game. But what they've been able to do, Essendon, especially with their midfield mix and changing out, some individuals there, their centre bounce work against Melbourne and against Gold Coast has been extremely potent. And think about, that Gold Coast mix last week, especially of, Rao and Petrarca in there. So one player that we've actually seen move out of that centre bounce mix over the last couple of weeks is Sam Durham. So Sam Durham is now playing predominantly forward. So he's spending, roughly about 80 to 90% of his game time over this period, Matty, that you're alluding to, in the forward half of the ground. And then as a result, as you'll see there, his output has dropped. But from a team perspective, that midfield mix is clearly working. So someone like a Zach Merritt is actually spending a little bit less time in centre bounce as well. So that responsibility has now gone to Parrish and Sardis. They've been waiting for Sardis to come along over the last couple of years. His first 2 games back have been really impressive. So that is of concern for Collingwood because their centre bounce work has been pretty poor.
Comfortable Sardis continue to do what he's doing?
No, need more evidence first.
Yep.
Need more evidence first. He's still a little bit scratchy with ball in hand. His ball winning ability has never been a question, but still needs some more evidence.
$3 is a good price though.
If you go for the last 2.5 weeks of football, I think $3 is a fantastic bet. I would have thought they should be more like closer to $2.50. So I'll be getting involved. I've made them the kiss of death this weekend, and I'm going to tip them as well. I think they can.
The line's around 3 goals
roll.
as well. well, so maybe comfortable to take the line.
The line's not bad because, I mean, Collingwood, they kick about 12 goals a week, so it's not many goals for Essendon to get within 3 goals. If they are to get within 3 goals, I would suggest Andy McGrath, the captain, needs to say, yep, I'm going to saddle up. That was a free kick to Haynes. Yes, I'm going to saddle up. I'm going to take care of Nick Dacos. Because if I can keep him in the high 20s, I think that's enough to get them in this game. And now, I don't know whether there's a player in the competition, Browny, who could have stopped Dacos in this type of mood, but McGrath is custom built, mid and back, to play on him.
Yeah, I just don't think you can hold him at the moment. And what I loved is I've never seen him go forward and use his body the way he did and took that mark. That's scary for opposition sides. Yeah. I know he only had a smaller type player on him, but that was just another string to his bow that we haven't seen a lot of.
And the good thing with Andy McGrath is, you know, if Dacos does go forward, McGrath's got that experience behind the footy that he can track him, so he won't lose him in transition as well. So, yeah, I mean, clearly, any time you come up against Collingwood, it's, you know, what you do with Nick, and that might be an option.
Pull a market up for the Anzac Day medal, so you can bet on this on the Sportsbet app and pick who you think is going to be voted best on ground. Nick Dacos obviously is a short price favourite. Do we see any value there, team? Or
well,
he's won a couple of these medals already.
I'm locking in the tag McGrath on Dacos, so I'll be shopping around. Maybe Darcy Cameron, maybe Josh Dacos, who's had 2 30 possession games in Anzac Day games. But this guy, I think he's my best bet of the weekend. And if he plays to that form, he might win the medal himself.
$9.
And he was incredibly... I love the fact they're moving him around. Keeps him... I think it keeps him enthused and invested. He doesn't know from week to week where he's going to play. And the good thing about him down back, he's such a good kick.
Yeah.
So putting him back there is not just to see him accumulate, it's to create.
He's easily the best value in the Anzac medal market, I would have thought.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if we think that Essendon are every chance here, it's going to be off the back of him.
He'd be front and centre, you'd think. So $9 might be a good play there. Check that out on the Sportsbet app. Let's take a look at another game today. It's between Geelong and Port Adelaide. They're short price favourites here, the Cats, and they certainly deserve to be, although we did see some signs of life from Port Adelaide on the road last week.
They were really good last week, weren't they? They were outstanding, Port Adelaide. The big thing for me is here. Like, O'Sheen Mullen has been tagging. He tagged Marcus Bontempelli. Geelong, even though they're a free-flowing side, they sometimes run 2 tags, sometimes run 3 tags. I'd be shocked. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if they don't tag Zach Butters, who almost took it away from the Hawks. He was brilliant the week before. They just have to go, let's take him out and we win this game.
Yeah, this matchup is almost box office in itself, because the reality was for Zach Butters, he hardly gets beaten, but he was beaten by O'Sheen Mullen twice last year. And, you know, for Port Adelaide, they are running off 2 players at the moment, and that's Jason Horne-Francis and Zach Butters. So you can, you know, almost just put it to the bank that O'Sheen's going to go to him. And looking at Zach, I wouldn't know Zach for a bar of soap, but he looks like he's got a lot of pride. Yeah. He's, you know, in his performance, he would know that O'Sheen got him twice last year. He's in ripping nick at the moment. What can he do against the game's best tagger on Saturday is going to be great to watch.
I was thinking about that because of that fact. Butters is so proud and so combative. How does he beat him? But physically, he doesn't have that many tools at his disposal. He's not bigger than him. He's not stronger. He's not going to be able to go to full forward and beat him.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And that's why I think the unders on Zach Butters is fantastic. I also like the unders on Jason Horne-Francis. His numbers against Geelong across his career, he's 4 or 5 under the 23.5. And I'd suggest he's going to get tagged as well. Knowing Chris Scott and the way he likes to go about it, I'm going to make you play left-handed or make you play with one arm tied behind your back. Take out Horne-Francis, take out Butters. How do Port Adelaide beat you?
Looking at goal kickers here, and all I want is one. It's not much to ask. If you play in the forward 50 and you play 100 minutes of football, Jack Martin, I think he can kick 1. Patrick Dangerfield kicked 2-3 last week. He looked great. Horne-Francis, because I think he does get tagged, he goes forward. I'm going to ask, Corey Durden, that's your job. You are a forward. He's the one I'm really worried about, Corey Durden. Just get it done. And Ollie Henry, he'll sniff out a goal. Even if there's 8 blokes hanging off him, he'll still try and kick it.
$3.40 for that goal kicker multi. I like it. Good luck, Corey Durden. Let's have a look at Fremantle and Carlton now. And the odds tell the story a little bit here in this one. They have shown something as well, Carlton. Amazing, I think. In terms of total time spent in front, they sit 3rd on that particular ladder, which is staggering. But it's going to be a tough ask on the road here against the Dockers.
Clearly one of the hardest road trips in the competition, and they're going to be doing it, with some individuals out as well. I feel like Fremantle over the last couple of weeks, they've just been in that, just get the job done, sort of mentality. Yes, they got over like 40 or 50 points against West Coast, but it wasn't brilliant. So potentially they will look to actually elevate their game on Saturday night.
This is probably probably the punters' favourite market in 2026. The quarter time, half time, three-quarter time, or the half time, full time markets, with Carlton leading and then losing. It's been good to a lot of people. And it's cost us plenty here.
And it's shortened up. It's shortened up from a few weeks ago too, hasn't it?
Yep, significantly.
I could occupy maybe quarter time. I think we might see the best version of Fremantle in this one. They do have 3 40-point wins on the season. So, yes, they've been just doing enough, but I like the fact they're just doing enough. They've got so much talent now. They're so much less reliant on Brayshaw and Sarong. They're using, Hayden Young comes into the team. Reid is a consistent 23, 24 disposal per game. Shea Bolton's been the same. They're a really well-oiled machine at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you just cast your mind back to Fremantle starts of the season and, a couple of those first quarters where they just, came out of the blocks and absolutely blew Geelong and Melbourne and, and Adelaide, over in Adelaide as well, out of the water, I would expect something similar on Saturday.
I'm backing Jordan Clark at halfback. They're my favourite players to back are halfback flankers, particularly when they play at home. And particularly when they take the kick out, which he does. So Jordan Clark, he's been averaging outstanding numbers. So 27 plus, 3 of his last 4 games, and he loves playing against Carlton, over 28 disposals. They've had their issues holding halfbacks this year, Carlton, so I will back him.
All right, at quarter time last week, I was thinking that I was going to be doing the Streakers segment once again. Unfortunately, this unfolded. We're rolling it onto Hawthorn this week. I think they'll smash Port Adelaide, so 13.5. They should be clear of
I like that one.
Comfortably.
That's good. Yeah.
Port had their chance, but the Hawks hang on by 3 points.
Wow. They nearly went down head-to-head as well. So we move on to you, JJ.
Yeah, I would have been happy if you had picked any of those games on Saturday, and all of them were a lot closer than we thought. So my turn, I think it's, if you've got a best bet, you've got to really, really trust it. So just wind it back ever so slightly. Zach Merritt, 26 plus disposals, hopefully this week.
Nothing like
I
that.
was going to say.
I like the hair, though.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the hair.
Good.
Apart from that, the jacket I could probably go without, but apart from that,
why don't we take a look at the premiership betting market as well? Because you were all over the Cats a few weeks ago, JJ. They have been the ones that have trimmed up a lot into $10 now, pretty much halved. From
big hole in the market has been the Dogs. They've fallen from equal favourites in the premiership to $26. I don't know there's a lot of value. I think I'd just sit on my heels for a week and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the Dockers are probably insured enough now. And gee, the traders could let us on a little bit with the Lions, couldn't they? They're just not prepared to wind them out at all based on what they've done.
Cost the business a couple of dollars across the last couple of years, I would think.
Who would you tip to win the premiership right now?
I'd still stick with Brisbane.
Yep.
I'm going Sydney.
I'm going to Sydney at the moment.
Right.
Yep.
I'm in the Fremantle camp. So
Freo.
Nice.
Yeah, I think they'll be firing towards the back end of the year. They're stacked with talent, the Dockers.
They are.
So, yep, that's my play. Good luck if you're getting involved in that, and enjoy the football on Saturday. A week is a long time in football. We were talking just 7 days ago about how Jeremy Cameron started the season so slowly, and then he goes bang,
10-bagger.
Puts 10 on the board down at the Cattery in what was a miserable night for the Western.
We highlighted last week Buku Khamis' defending techniques, and he was the perfect player to play on him last week. But Ben King, $2.50. Jeremy Cameron has roared into contention, and Jack Gunston, who kicks the 3s and the 4s, but you feel like Ben King has got a couple of 6 or 7s left in him.
Yeah, I'm still thinking my man Aaron Norton's only 6 off the lead. Now he's the number one man all year.
Hand, though. It looks like he's sore. His hand looks sore, doesn't he? With the
can't
glove
get through
on,
a season,
with the glove
can he,
on
Norton?
last week, it looked like he.
Yeah, he does
But
get
Jeremy,
off
it was funny looking back at Jeremy now. I know it's all good in hindsight. 7 goals after the first 4 games last year that he played. 7 goals after the first 4 games this year, and now he's off and running. So
Bit of a reminder, wasn't it?
we probably should have done that last week.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the St Kilda and West Coast game. Certainly not the biggest game of the weekend, but the Saints. Ross made a bit of a point in his press conference. He thinks they're going a little bit better than their win-loss record. I tend to agree with him, but they do need to just knock this one off.
Yeah, profile-wise, not much has actually changed. You know, offensively and defensively, they have improved a little bit defensively, but they have given up a little bit offensively. So I think, these next 2 weeks for St Kilda, when they come up against West Coast and Carlton, they have to be 4-4. But more importantly, they have to start to be playing some sort of, clear brand of footy that you can look in and go, they are now a threat for this top 10 position.
Well, they need percentage too, don't they?
Yeah.
They have to. This has to be a big win, little win, 40-plus market. They need to build. So if you're thinking around 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, you'd love to just get above that margin and get 40-plus. They need to make a statement here. Callum Wilkie's the other one. I've been talking about him all year. He's averaging 26.5, but they continue to give you a good price on Callum Wilkie. He stops them, and we had 5 kicked on him last week, but that doesn't matter because he's still got the football. So have a look at that. He's averaging 26.5, and that's $2.50 on the average. So I'll be backing him while they give you the price.
That was one of the better battles I've seen for a long time between Wilkie and Taylor Walker last week.
He torched Walker in the first quarter.
The first quarter was extraordinary.
And then as you say,
back.
they both might have got in the votes in that one. I think Nasai's been building. I like the way the Saints used him. So in the last quarter, he started as a forward, but he went up to stoppage, and then he went behind the ball. He had about 7 or 8 disposals in the first 5 minutes of the last quarter. That's the method for me. I've said, you don't like him as a forward. He's shown us once in a quarter of footy what he can do as a full forward. Otherwise, just playing behind the ball or in line with the footy, I think he's been building. And in a game where McQualter always talks about, no, we need to get our system up and going before we worry about the opposition. Great opportunity for Nasai to go big in this one.
He's such a fascinating player, particularly on the punt. What about Marcus Windhager?
Same situation. He tagged Harley Reid last year out of the contest over there in Perth, but I think he'll play half back. His numbers have just come off a little bit. He started red hot. Again, I think if you think about this game, St Kilda build a big lead, and then you might see Sinclair and Wilkie and Windhager chip it around, take some time and some sting out of the game. And I like Windhager for 24+. So Nasai and Windhager, both 2 guys I'm keen to get around this weekend.
Well, pumping Max Hall up at the start of the year, but just hasn't the trajectory hasn't kept going up so far.
Yeah, I feel like that we've been talking about him now for 2 years on this show, but it's hard for me to say this, unfortunately, Max. But the last 4 weeks, he just hasn't been performing at the same levels that he was for that 15 to 20 game stretch. His first 2 weeks of the season, especially that Melbourne game in round 1, was phenomenal. But only 14 disposals per game in his last 4 weeks. Only kicked 2 goals in his last 4 weeks. I like seeing him in that last quarter go in and attend a lot of centre bounces.
Is he playing the same role, or has he changed a bit?
It's the attention, I think. Yeah. I think the opposition clubs are now in the front half of the ground without big key forwards. He's the one. He's the tone setter who can really get you going. So I think it's as much about attention. Yeah,
I'm just waiting for Ross to unleash him more as a centre bounce player. I think when he, if he gets that 60 to 70, percent midfield time, expect his numbers to actually flourish. But one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, this game that we're about to take a look at is an absolute crack and a really important game for both of these two sides as well. Brisbane short price favourites at the Gabba, coming off a loss in the same time slot to the D's last week, and the Crows just got it done against the Saints. And this man, Taylor Walker, in the second half was a large reason why, JJ.
He was magnificent. He's got beautiful timing on the lead. He's just natural. He's similar to Jack Gunston in that fashion. He just knows when to come up and hit up at the ball carrier. Always been a beautiful finisher. And at this point of his career, he relies a lot on the timing of the leads and the finishing, because he's never really been someone who's going to outrun an opponent. He's always going to do it with timing and with opportunities. So he's playing good footy, and they've needed it because Thilthorpe just hasn't got going in the year, and Fogarty's out still.
I wouldn't back Tex this week. I think when you're an ageing player like that, he had the week off before that, so he would have been fresh. Now he's just got that sore. I don't think he's got goals in him, 3+ this week. So if you wanted to take him, I'd be under the 3 market. I'd be the 1 or the 2. I think at that age, you get sore very quickly.
And Andrews probably spends a fair bit of time on him, and he was sensational last week as well. So that's a tough matchup. I do think that there's value here in the Crows, though. I think we forget just how good they were, last year. And I know they've been a little bit inconsistent through the start of the season, but they're just starting to get their game going, particularly in offence, forward of centre. Some of their star players are starting to fire up, and they travel as well as any team in the competition, I think, anyway. 20.5 head start. I think they can defend that. And as we record right now, we're not sure whether or not Dawson plays. That would be a big inclusion for them too.
Yeah, and Brisbane already have a few out from that game against Melbourne as well. So I think Brisbane will get it done. But yeah, I'm with you on that one there, Matty.
All right. Is Hugh McCluggage a player of interest for the Lions this weekend?
Yes, absolutely. So third game back, I reckon he's ready to rock and roll. 56% game time, 67% game time. Ready to go, hopefully third up. He's got a really good record. 2 of his last 3 against Adelaide. He's gone north of 30. $1.30. So McCluggage, without a tag, they'll probably go to Neil with a Peatling, better like for like. I reckon McCluggage can have a big, big game.
All right, and a man who kicked one of the goals of the year last week. Yeah, Charlie Cameron, that was sensational. He's hit a bit of form. Absolutely,
and he's been in good form right from the start of the season. You know, you just alluded to that goal previously. It just feels like to me that he's brewing for one of those massive days, one of those 5-6 goal type of occasions. And his previous 2 campaigns, he's been a little bit hit and miss with his consistency. But when you look at Adelaide behind the footy, there's not really an absolute ideal matchup. Whether that's Michael Annie who might get him, but Michael Annie's only just going at the moment. So there's an opportunity here, I think, for Charlie to actually go big.
Yeah, when he's at his best, he's just so deadly on the move. He's just moving beautifully.
Loves to see the old team too. He does. Former Crow, of course. Grand final day almost. He kicked 4 in the grand final, 3 in Origin, and he hasn't looked back since when people were questioning his spot in the team, probably rightfully at different stages last year. So he's airborne.
Sometimes it's just as much about the role that you play when you're playing that sort of small forward role. The opportunities can come.
I think he was off last year.
Yeah, no doubt. But he has set himself such a high benchmark that as soon as you come off that high level...
He wasn't as fit last year. He wasn't ready to play AFL football the way he needed to, and I think he is this year.
There were late outs for the Giants in the sort of 24 to 48 hours before the game last week, and they probably proved quite costly. Expecting some of those players to return this week. $1.41 feels about right against a Kangaroo side that have been, they've exceeded expectations.
Yeah, this is a huge game for GWS because I'm sitting here right now looking at their profile on paper, and there is so much that is going right at the moment. They have had the worst injury run of any team in the competition. They have clearly the easiest fixture in the competition for the remainder of the season. Ball movement-wise, there's only one team in the competition who's top 3 for ball movement across D50 and the halfback area. That's GWS. Their D50 is holding up extremely well, and that is without Sam Taylor. They did so much right against against Sydney on the weekend, bar accuracy. Without Cadman, Hogan, Brent Daniels, they have a lot going for them. If they get this win on the weekend, they are the team from the bottom 8 at the moment who could get on a significant run.
Bit of a whooshka.
They are doing a lot right.
It's an important game for them. It's also an important game for the Kangaroos if they can continue to play the way they're playing. So top 10, it might be fanciful, but at the moment you're getting $3.10 to make the top 10. It's not the top 8 anymore. It is the top 10, and this win would put them I'm not going to say a long way, but
5 and 2.
And Zurha, magnet mover. You've got to try every failed forward at half back before you kick them out, and he had numbers galore last week. Have a look at that. So I'm going to put him into the same game multi this week. I'm only asking for 20. Aaron Cadman back in for 2+, and Darcy Wilmot picking up some stats last week with no Dane Zorko. He only had the 4 kickouts too, so I'm expecting big things.
Okay, quick tip, who wins?
North.
GWS.
Ooh.
GWS.
Oh, I'm with the Giants as well. Good game of footy, enjoy it.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.